So, what can you possibly learn about a disagreement with your boss, or maybe your teenager, from someone who negotiates life or death hostage situations for a living? Well, it turns out a lot. Today, we're going to break down the incredible insights from former FBI chief hostage negotiator Gary Noesner and see how his strategies for getting people to cooperate can actually work in our everyday lives.
Back in the day, the police playbook for a hostage situation was, well, pretty simple. It was basically, come on out, or we're coming in to get you. The super aggressive, confrontational approach, it often ended in tragedy. But then a totally new idea started to take hold. What if we just slowed everything down, contained the situation, and, actually started a conversation?
And that simple phrase right there became the entire foundation of modern negotiation. Noesner said these were literally the first words on his training guide. The whole goal was to just lower the emotional temperature of the room, to open the door for a real conversation. He's got this great name for it, kind of funny actually. He calls it dynamic inactivity. Because while it looks like you're doing nothing, you're actually doing the most important thing of all, creating the space for a peaceful outcome.
So why does just slowing things down work so well? I mean, what's really going on there? It all comes down to this core psychological principle that the FBI's entire strategy is built around.
This right here is the heart of pretty much every conflict. When someone is furious or scared or feels totally disrespected, their emotions are running the show. And when that happens, their ability to think straight just goes out the window. Trying to reason with someone in that state, it's like trying to have a calm chat in the middle of a hurricane. It's just not going to work. I want you to think of it like a teeter-totter. When the emotion side is way up high, the rationality side is stuck on the ground. And you can't just yell at someone to be more rational. That only pushes the emotion side even higher. Nope. The only way to get their rational mind back online is to first figure out how to bring their emotions down. Which, of course, leads us to the big question, right? If you can't argue or reason someone out of an emotional state, what do you do? Well, luckily for us, the FBI developed a really clear step-by-step framework to do exactly that. Okay, so how do we actually do it? This is the master strategy. And listen, this isn't just a random list of tips. You have to think of it like a ladder that you absolutely have to climb, one step at a time, to get from conflict to cooperation. And here it is. The very foundation, step one, is active listening. That's what allows you to show the next step, empathy. Now, once people feel you truly understand them, you start to build rapport. That's a real connection of trust. And that trust is what gives you influence, the ability to actually guide their behavior. Only then, at the very top, can you get to cooperation. And you cannot skip steps. You can't just jump to trying to influence someone. You have to earn your way up that ladder. Let's just pause on a really important distinction here. Empathy is not sympathy. Sympathy is saying, oh, I feel sorry for you. Empathy is saying, I understand why you feel the way you do. See the difference? You don't have to agree with someone to understand their point of view. And showing them that you understand, that is the key that unlocks everything else. Okay, so since active listening is the foundation for this whole thing, let's zoom in on that first step. What does it actually look like to listen actively? Noesner has this absolutely brilliant analogy for this. Most of us think of listening as just not talking, being quiet while the other person speaks. But real, active listening, it is anything but passive. It's an action. It requires a very specific kind of response that proves you're not just hearing the words, but you're actually getting the meaning behind them. This is the M&M analogy. So think about any story someone tells you. The chocolate in the middle? That's the substance, the facts, the what happened. But that candy coating on the outside, that's the emotion. It's how they feel about what happened. To truly actively listen, you have to acknowledge both parts. You have to show them you got the story and you understood the feeling that came with it. Okay, so here's a little homework for you. In your very next conversation, I want you to try this. First, just paraphrase back what you heard them say. Something like, okay, so it sounds like you went to France and you got to see all the vineyards. Then, step two, label the emotion you think they're feeling about it. Wow, it seems like that was a really amazing and exciting trip for you. It's that simple, but trust me, it is unbelievably powerful. And just how powerful is it? Well, Noesner tells this amazing story about sitting at a bar and just using these techniques on a total stranger. And after an hour and a half of just listening and asking a few questions, Noesner knew the guy's name, his wife's name, his kids' names, where he went to college, his entire life story. And when Noesner finally got up to leave, the guy turned to him and asked, "Hey, what was your name again?" That's what happens when you make someone feel truly, deeply heard. So we've got the steps, we've got the techniques, but after this long, incredible career, what does Gary Noesner say is the single biggest, most important lesson he ever learned? This is just astounding. After his cases were over, Noesner would go back and ask the people he negotiated with, "What did I say? What was it that made you decide to come out peacefully?" And he says that every single time, without fail, he got the exact same answer. I don't really remember what you said, but I liked the way you said it.
Just let that sink in for a second. It wasn't his clever arguments. It wasn't some perfectly crafted sentence that convinced them. It was his tone, his patience, his calm, caring, and respectful demeanor. At the end of the day, how he was communicating was infinitely more important than what he was communicating. That how is the entire 5-step ladder in action.
Think about a case like the one on the USS Yorktown. A veteran took over this massive aircraft carrier, and the police didn't storm the ship. They spent 10 hours, patiently talking with him, listening to him, showing him they cared. They focused on the how, not the what. And you know what? It ended peacefully. All he really wanted was to be heard. So here's the big takeaway for all of us. In our own lives, our own conflicts, it is so easy to get obsessed with having the perfect comeback, with finding the right words to win the argument. But maybe the real secret is to just take a breath and ask ourselves, am I focusing more on what I'm trying to say or on how I'm making this other person feel?